Here's a little song I wrote. I'm going to play it note for note. It's called Love is Our Freedom.
It's Love We Live. Thank you, Dave Della Rosa, for that original song. And I saw that was a very original title for your original song. Just said, I don't know if y'all saw, I just said original song up there. But thank you for the beautiful music you bring us, and for our whole band that is here every week with us and is a wonderful addition to our So welcome everybody to the light and love of unity of the Blue Ridge. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you and to see all of your shining faces. Every week we come together to remember who we are, whose we are, to find that thread of our soul that is walking through the world. And so as we do that, I invite you all to come together in a moment. Well, actually, why don't we say what we do? Let's say who we are. We are radically inclusive, spiritually progressive, and socially responsive. And with that, let's settle into a time of prayer. As we settle into the quiet this morning, we bring ourselves fully here, body, mind, and spirit. We allow ourselves to breathe easily. We allow ourselves to feel the love of the people around us. As the rain watered the earth this morning, soaking up the good nourishment it needs, we open ourselves to soak in the Spirit here today, to soak in the stories and the songs, to be inspired so that we may be inspiring. Resting in a moment of relaxation and gratitude, we open our minds, we open our hearts, and we allow ourselves to be moved. And so for this time and this place and these people, we say, thank you, God. Amen.
Please stand and join me in the congregational song, Spirit is in this place. I invite you to turn and greet your neighbor with a unity handshake or unity hug. with God.
Thank you, Kat and our Unity Band, Richard Schulman on piano, Dave De La Rosa, Joel, and Barefoot Pete. Thank you. I'm Reverend Laura Collins. I'm one of the associate ministers here, and our senior minister, Reverend Darlene Strickland, is spending another week with her ankle up, keeping off it because she broke it a few weeks ago, for those of you who don't know. And we have a wonderful guest speaker, Michael Meade, that you'll hear more about later, so it's an opportunity for her to have a little day of rest. So peace to Darlene, who's probably watching us, and to all of our live stream audience. Turn around and wish them hello. It's nice to have them all here. And speaking of having people here, it's nice to have visitors here. So if we have anyone who's here for the first time, or the first time in a very long time, if you would just raise your hand. We won't make you stand up or say your name or anything, but we'd love to bring you. Our usher is going to bring around some cards that you are welcome to fill out and put outside. There's a basket outside of our bookstore, and that way we can send you some more information. There's also an information packet that you can pick up out there. And you should have a little red heart on your card, and you're welcome to attach the red heart somewhere that we can see it if you would like for us to greet you after the service, and we'd like to be able to do that. But mostly, what we really want to do is just tell you that we're really glad you're here, and that we hope that you are blessed by this morning, and we know that because your spirit is with us, we are blessed by you, that the energy in this place is different because you're with us, and we're glad. And so we, in our tradition, rub our hands together, and we send you this blessing. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Thank you. I'd like to welcome another visitor this morning, although he's becoming a familiar face around here, Israel Oliveras, who is with the Migrant Education Program. So you've seen Israel before because for the last month we've been collecting things for migrant workers who are going to be working in our area this summer, who've already started working actually. And we've been collecting long sleeve shirts and wide brimmed hats and bandanas so that when they're out in the hot sun picking our fruits and vegetables, they will be protected and cared for. And so Israel, who works with that program in the Henderson County Public Schools, would like to say a few words.
Hey, thank you for having me here, first of all. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who had brought stuff for these families, these migrant families. And I was saying earlier that when Pam and Charlie told me that they had collected stuff, I never imagined having this big pile of clothing. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure all these families and these workers are going to be really grateful with all this. So thank you for having us here. And I was saying earlier that how me and my daughter feel very welcome coming to this congregation, so thank you everybody for that.
The amount that you see out on the table is not the amount you've collected. There was too much for the table. It's been stored in back rooms. Half of it was taken last week. You brought a truck to bring the rest of it this week. So thank you so much for your generosity. And on behalf of all the migrant workers and for Israel, your work too, we say this blessing to you. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the divinity in you. Thank you. Reverend Christy Corna.
Reverend, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to continue with a few announcements for you. Please be sure to pick up one of the May bulletins because we have a lot of activities and events happening here that may not necessarily be up here, but they're on our website, in our e-news, and in our bulletin. So please be sure that you are able to get that information. And what's coming up this week is a New to Unity class with Reverend Darlene. First of all, now is a perfect time to silence your cell phones. If you haven't already done that, we appreciate that. So this Thursday, the 9th, is Reverend Darlene has a New to Unity class. So if you would like to learn more about Unity, its teachings, Unity of the Blue Ridge, join us here. We'll have some staff and other members here, and then others that are new to Unity also. You can ask questions. It's a laid-back time of Q&A and very informative, and we would love to have you join us this Thursday at 6:30 to 8:30. And then just want to remind you that on the 19th, May 19th, we have one combined service, and that is going to be at 10:30. And then directly following that 10:30 service, we will have our quarterly town hall meeting where we'll be updated on all the happenings here at Unity of the Blue Ridge. And we invite you to bring a lunch and stay for that as well. Everyone is welcome. And then also on the 19th, before the service at 9:30, there is an information session for care and prayers. It's not necessarily about learning about being a prayer chaplain, but we have care teams and prayer teams here. And if you have any questions about that, would like to learn more about different ways that you can serve behind the scenes, holding the healing energy of this community, please see Reverend Laura about that. And they'll have that meeting that morning before our combined service on May 19th at 9:30. And then we have, is that it? Is that it? Are we aware? No, there's more, but wait, there's more. So we have new service times starting right after Memorial Day, June 2nd, and our new service times will be 9:15 a.m. and 11 a.m. We'll have nursery care and toddler care during both services, and our youth ed program will be moved to the 11 a.m. service. So mark your calendars, June 2nd, first service 9:15 a.m., second service 11 a.m. And just want to remind you that we have prayer chaplains available to support you in prayer and support your visions and all of that good stuff following today's service. And with that, we are aware. I'd like to reintroduce Reverend Laura Collins. Thank you for all you do.
I think Michael got us sort of wound up at the first service. We're having a little too much fun here. I'd like to read to you from a poem by Hafiz, one of the Sufi masters. And this one is called Don't Die Again. I am a man who knows the 10,000 positions of divine love. I can tell by the light in your eyes that you are still most familiar with the few earthly ones. But would not a good father instruct all his heirs toward that path that will someday deeply satisfy? This world is a treacherous place and will surely slay and drown the lazy. The only life raft here is love, and the name. Say it, brother. Oh, say the divine name, dear sister, silently as you walk. Don't die again with that holy ruby mine inside still unclaimed, when you could be swinging a golden pick with each step.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever seen, everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to this present moment, and here to this new beginning here. And I'm seeing life so clearly now. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest part of life, to the sweetest kind of love. Get ready, my soul. And here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. And here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. And here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. And here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest part of love, to the sweetest part of life. Get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Thank you, Cat Williams, our amazing band. We are so blessed. Thank you again for that. Thank you. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, author Michael Meade. He was here Friday evening. We had a packed house, a wonderful, insightful, fun event. And then he had an all-day workshop here yesterday, and we are delighted to have him as our guest speaker today. And on a personal note, my experience of this man is, what I love about him is his brilliance and his poetic sense and his philosophy and his storytelling and this energy with which he weaves this most sacred message that reaches each of us in a really unique way. So a little bit about Michael Meade. He's a renowned author, storyteller, and scholar of mythology, anthropology, and psychology. He combines hypnotic storytelling, street-savvy perceptiveness, and spellbinding interpretations of ancient myths with a deep knowledge of cross-cultural rituals. He has an unusual ability to distill and synthesize these disciplines, tapping into ancestral sources of wisdom and connecting them to the stories we are living out today. He's the author of The Genius Myth, Fate and Destiny, The Two Agreements of the Soul, Why the World Doesn't End, The Water of Life, Initiation and the Tempering of the Soul, editor with James Hillman and Robert Bly of Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart, and editor of Crossroads, A Quest for Contemporary Rites of Passage. He is also the founder of the Mosaic Multicultural Foundation, which is a nonprofit that supports artists, activists, and community builders and encourages greater understanding between diverse people. He's funny, he's insightful. Please give a warm welcome to Michael Meade.
Thank you so much. Morning, everyone. So I'm going to go a little forward. I see there's people over in the corner. So I like to begin with songs also, and so here's a song I was thinking of when I was hearing "Get Ready, My Soul" and the idea of going deeper. And in the background, I'm always thinking about all the trouble in the world. You know, it's an unusual time to be alive because nature is in its turmoil and culture seems to be unraveling before our eyes. That's unusual to be in such levels of crisis. And so one of the things that's needed is healing of all kinds. The word healing has to do with the word whole. To heal is to make it whole again. And we know we're not in a kind of wholeness. The word unity is a beautiful word, but the practice of unifying seems to be a forgotten art. And one of the tricks to, well, unity comes from the Latin unitas, and community comes from the Latin communitas. And communitas means to bring everybody together by finding something so deep that it applies to everyone and can pull everybody into unity. So unity requires depth, and so does healing. You have to get all the way down to the wound in order to heal it. And so hopefully we're going into a period of bigger healing. We certainly have accomplished division. And making whole requires first that everything to be divided. If it wasn't divided, you wouldn't have to make it whole. So the division is the beginning of the healing in a certain way, at least if people's hearts are open. And so one of the old ways to unify is to divide. You can divide the world in various ways. You can divide it between up and down. You can divide it between left and right. You can divide it between the masculine and the feminine. And so a lot of traditional cultures had songs in which they called the opposites in order to bring the unity. And so this is a song from the Dagara tribe, it's the tribe that gave me this drum, West Africa, Burkina Faso. And this is a song they use to bring everyone together. It's a call to the ancestors, in particular the male ancestors and the female ancestors, since they're like the basic kinds. And so it's bringing everybody together by bringing the feminine and masculine together. But the call to the ancestors is also bringing the living and the dead together. So it's trying to bring everyone together. And in Africa, the living are called the living, and the dead are called the living dead. Because when you die, according to this theory, your body decomposes, but your soul travels on. And so the dead are actually alive in a realm of the soul. And they like the ancestors because the ancestors deliver dreams. So if you want big dreams, which are important for the soul, right? You got that memo? If people stop dreaming, they die. That's scientific information. And everybody, they used to describe a human as a dream set within a soul around which a body is wrapped. So the core of us is a dream. We're here to unfold a dream that's inside and live it into the world. And that's how we make ourselves whole. But when more people do that, we can make everything perhaps more whole. But anyway, beginning with trying to bring together opposite things, this is the call to the ancestors from the Dogara tribe. And it's a sing-along. And this is such an old song that you can't hurt it. So you listen and then you'll pick it up because you were singing so beautifully before. Pura samine, pura samine, pura samine wo, pura samine wo, pura mamine, pura mamine. So pura means praise. Sa is like the English word sire. It means grandfather. The grandfathers are standing in for the male ancestors. Many means much, and wo means woe. And then it goes pura, praise, ma, mom, mother, grandmother, female ancestor, many, much praise to the female ancestors, and it goes back and forth. So just try it out. My first drum teacher told me every mistake is a new style. Most people get so ashamed of their mistakes, they give up and we don't get any new styles. So don't worry about hurting the song. It's not about being accurate. And think about it this way. The ancestors have lost their bodies, so they're a little hard of hearing. And so the purpose here is not accuracy, it's volume. You ready? Pura samine, pura samine, pura samine wo, pura samine wo, pura mamine, pura mamine, pura mamine wo, pura mamine wo. Try it out. Pura samine, pura samine, pura samine wo, pura samine wo. When I first started hanging out with the Dogara people, they were going to do a ritual, and they were a short one drummer, or else they were looking for a short drummer. At any rate, I got drafted into drumming for the ritual, and I had to learn the song and the rhythm. But what no one told me was, once you start drumming and singing, you can't stop till the ritual was over. And it turned out that the ritual went all night long, and you weren't allowed to drink water because it might interfere with the flow of spirit. And so I learned to play for hour upon hour, and I can tell you this, after the first hour and a half, you can't remember if you paid your car insurance. A couple of hours more, you're not sure of your last name or where you come from. And eventually you're just riding the horse of spirit through unseen places, and it is quite amazing. But we don't have time for that today, so we'll just call on the ancestors for some guidance. Pura mamine, pura mamine, pura mamine wo, pura mamine wo. So I'm going to fade the drum but keep the song going. Pura samine, pura samine, pura samine wo, pura samine wo. The last verse is always to the grandmothers, because everyone, male or female, who comes into the world comes in through the womb of a woman, and the womb of the woman is the female ancestor. Pura mamine, pura mamine, pura mamine wo, pura mamine wo. Thank you. Beautiful, isn't it? So, sometimes in a world like this, the only harmony you can find is in a song. And it's interesting to think that the first part of the word harmony is harm, as if someone understood that harmony was going to bring people together after the harm has happened. And it's really fortunate to have songs to share. Traditional cultures have lots of songs for many different reasons, and they have rituals. Every song is a ritual in a funny way. And then people have stories. And the word story means storehouse. And for some reason, people are always forgetting the most important things. And yet they can't disappear, they just fall back into the stories. And so another unfortunate thing about modern life is we don't have enough shared stories. I mean real stories, like mythological stories. Stories that bring the mystery of life present. Stories that make us understand not just ourselves, but our connection to the world. And so one of the things I've been doing, for a long time, is just trying to find stories that express both the suffering of the world and the deep imagination of life. And so this is, this is a Native American story told. I've only found it in 2 tribes, and that's often the case, that stories are in more than one tribe. And then, as I was saying at the previous gathering this morning, it's a multicultural experience in the sense that it's a Native American story. This is a West African drum. I'm playing an East African rhythm in order to tell the story. The goat skin that was originally on this drum didn't like the passage from Africa over to here, which is an experience a lot of people had. And so I had to get a volunteer goat on the island where I live up near Seattle. And so it now has a volunteer goat from Vashon Island on top. And then I tend to tell stories with a New York accent and then follow with an Irish interpretation. So we call it multicultural. Secretly, everyone's multicultural in the sense that in the depth of the soul, we're connected through threads that are mostly unseen but are essential. So this is a story about, it's called The Origin of Healing Ceremonies, how healing began. And they would tell this story when people really needed the healing. That's what they would pull out the story for the occasion. So once upon a time, at the beginning of time, back at the beginning when time was just beginning to be, the one who made the world finished making all the plants and all the animals and the rivers and the mountains and decided to make the first humans, the first people. And so the one who made the world made those people and placed them on the earth in a given place. Because on this earth you have to be in a place or you're in no place at all. And those first people began to live in the place where they had been put. And strangely enough, they didn't like it there. They weren't resting well, and they weren't having big dreams like they wanted to have. And they were beginning to complain. And you could say ever since then, people have been complaining about one thing or another. But at that time, the one who made the earth was still close to the earth. And so he heard, she heard, the complaining of the people and said, listen, if you don't like where you are, you can pick up and go to another place. And truly, ever since then, people have been picking up and going from place to place. And then the people traveled around, and they'd stop here, and they stopped there, and they stopped in a certain place, and they began to rest well, and they began to dream big dreams, and so that became their dwelling place, and they were living there in a good way, and life was going on. And then it happened that a couple of people, amongst the first people, became ill. They became sick. They fell into an illness, but no one knew what illness was. No one had seen illness before, and therefore, the people didn't do anything for those that were sick. They left them alone, and because they were left alone, they began to fail day after day, and soon they were falling towards death, and still no one did anything. But then it happened one night that 4 of those first people went out and sat in the darkness and looked straight into the darkness in all 4 directions, and they sat there quietly as if they were meditating or contemplating. And as they were doing that, the one who made the earth spoke again and said, listen, on the earth, for every illness there is a cure. For every sickness there is a remedy. For every trouble there is an antidote. And once they had heard that, they knew that illness was present, but they knew that curing was possible. They knew that healing was a possible thing on the earth. And so they went back and they carried those ideas back. That was the beginning of knowledge as well as the beginning of healing. And then each night after that, those 4 would go out. And on the first night afterwards, when they went out, the one who was facing the east suddenly learned a lightning song. It was not possible to tell. Did the song come from the outside in, or did it erupt from the inside out? They didn't know. They just knew now they had a lightning song. The next night, the one facing the north got a healing song. And the next night, the one facing the west got a rhythm song. And the 4th night, the one facing the south got another healing song. And at that point, they all had songs. And then the one who made the earth began to speak again and said, listen, now that you know things, now that you have songs, now that you have healing words, why don't you go get those people that are sick and bring them to the center of the village and gather everyone and sing to them and tell them stories and lay hands on them and bring them from illness and the door of death back into life. So then those 4 people went back into the village, and they found the 2 that were ill, and they brought them to the center, and everyone then was invited to the center, and all the people came. And when they were there, the ones who had gathered those songs from the darkness began to sing to them, and they began to tell them the stories of the beginning. And then they laid hands on them, and then they sang to them again, and everyone sang to them. And then the ones who were ill came back into life, and they stood up, and they began to become vital again. And everybody noticed that when they were helping those who were ill become well, they also felt healed, and everyone felt together and felt this feeling of wholeness. And so they sang again just to make sure that they had done it. And after that, they remembered everything on this earth that can make you sick, there is also a remedy. Every kind of trouble, there is a cure. And every kind of problem, there's an antidote. And they carried that knowledge, the knowledge of healing, and the knowledge of laying on hands and calling to people's spirits. And some people they still live in that way. I'm not sure. I just keep telling the story in hopes that someday we could come to live in that way again. So that's the origin of healing ceremonies. And so in a way, hearing a story creates a different kind of community because we're then in the territory of the story. And the story is a direct teaching vehicle. You can learn directly from a story. And so the old tradition is to catch where the story strikes you. Understanding the story, that's for academics, and it doesn't help. But I call it mythological acupuncture. Where the story strikes you is the needle trying to get us to pay attention to something specific. So just for a moment, consider what struck you most in the story. You have to trust yourself in the story realm, like in the relationship realm. So anyone What struck you? Way back there, as loud as you can. Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, it's the total truth. People keep looking for the answer in the light, when if the answers we need were in the light, everybody would have found them already. What's missing is in the dark. Do you know the old story about Nasruddin? Does everybody know Nasruddin? Nasruddin is the wise fool in the Middle Eastern traditions, Sufi traditions. He's like a minister and a fool. I don't know what that says about ministers, excuse me. But so this is a long time ago, and it's the middle of the night. It's completely dark. There's one little gas lamp in the village where Nasruddin lives. And Nasruddin is on the ground looking for something, under the street lamp. And a friend comes along and said, Nasruddin, what's going on? Did you lose something? And he said, yeah, I lost the key, the only key to my house. I lost it. And the friend says, I'll help. So now the two of them are down on the ground looking everywhere for quite a while. And after a while, the friend says, are you sure you lost your key here under this light? And Nasruddin said, no, I lost it in the dark, but it's much easier to look here. So the message is that the key that we're looking for to unlock our own inner soul is in the dark. And if we don't go there, then we will never find the key. And then we come to the end of the life and realize we live someone else's life. So that's a problem. So thank you for that light and dark. These are called the dark times, in case you didn't get that memo. In India, it's Kali Yuga. Kali means darkness. Kali Yuga means long time in the darkness. And so the light we're looking for now is the light inside the dark. And that's the exact definition of the soul in certain traditions. The soul is the light hidden inside the darkness. I want to come back to the idea of soul and distinguish it from spirit. But I want to hear, where else were you in the story? Anyone? Yes?
I was struck by the fact that when the people wanted to go to the source, no one went alone. They went in a community of four. And they didn't just look in one direction for it. They looked in all four directions.
Yeah, that's nice. So there's an old idea that says when we go as a group of fellow seekers, we go farther than if we go on our own. And that doesn't mean you don't look into your soul on your own, but it means you have some good friends of the soul that you can talk about the real issues of life with. So thank you. That's what it made me think of, friends of the soul. Nowadays you can have lots of friends on Facebook, but they're not that helpful when you're in trouble. It's better to have 3 friends of the soul than to have 300 friends online, I would say. Anyone else? Yes.
That when they first got sick, they were left alone.
Yeah.
And they fell.
So one reason I like the story is because it reminds us, we keep forgetting that where the suffering is what brings us together. If we ignore the wound, we remain divided. If we go to the woundedness, we recognize our own woundedness and we come together. And I even think of that sometimes in visiting a hospital where people are there sick, instead of right in the middle of the community where everybody can empathize, sympathize, and also relate to the woundedness in everyone. So that's maybe a problem still, avoiding the ill when they actually are the vehicle through which wholeness is found. Anyone else? Don't all speak at once. Yes?
A place that touches me in the story is where, like at the very beginning, the dissatisfaction of the people where they create a place and how they weren't having the big dreams there, and so they needed, there's just something there that I'm like, really?
Well, there's 2 surprises to me in that the first people judged a good place by how big their dreams were. That's a tremendous idea. It's not like, how high are the real estate values. It turns the attention towards the deeper real estate, the territory territory of dreams. And then it also gives this permission. If you're not getting deep rest, which means a capacity to dwell with oneself, and you're not having big dreams, move on. I mean, that's a tremendous permission, you know. So it also says what's important. What's important. We can't be effective activists changing the world if we don't get rest. I've learned that. A lot of people doing good work burn out. So the rest is important, and it's only when we're deeply resting that we renew the dream of our own life. So there's a lot of messages in there. Thank you. Yes? Why did the poor become ill? It was two at the beginning. Why did they become ill? Because it's part of the world. So, in other... What?
They were the first to feel ill because...
To be alive is to be wounded. Anyone who enters this world is wounded. It's just part of the deal. So the first wound occurs when the soul departs from the other world, right? The divine world, the imaginal world. The soul departs from the divine world, which is eternal, and it enters time, which is only a part of the eternity. It's a limited time, and the entering the world is the first wound. And so from the time we enter the world, we have the wound of longing for the eternal. And that's been the root of all the religions, is how do we get back to the eternal? And one thing I liked about the service here is when they're saying we're blessing, welcoming and blessing the divinity in you. Because the big thing that people in the Western world forgot was that divine is inside. How could we have an idea about the divine if we didn't have a connection to it already? We wouldn't think of it. So, but illness is part of life, human life especially. And so everything has to be there at the beginning, including illness. And then what the story says, though, is where the illness is where the chance for healing, making whole, and bringing people together exists. So that, and it's very Christian if you think of the idea that you go to who is most wounded. You don't go to who is most comfortable. It also says that the wound is the place of awakening and making effective change. And so now you can't avoid the wound. You have wounds all throughout nature, in all the forests, in the waters, in the ecosystems that are broken all over the place, and you have wounds all the way through the culture. You have the poverty, you have the misogyny, you have the racism, you have the bigotry. It's all come back. When those things come back, and I say come back, they never left, but those of us who went to the 60s thought we at least did a little bit with racism and feminism and something, civil rights. But then when they all come back, it's called the return of the repressed. Everything that was pushed down or ignored comes rushing back at once, as if to say all the illness is going to be here at once so we can get the big healing going. That's one way to look at it. Anyone else? We're right on time? All right. Yeah? Yes. You're going to speak again? Go right ahead.
You said to be human is to be wounded, but then you stopped and you said especially humans. Why did you make that distinction?
Well, humans are the ones who are supposed to be conscious of the condition of the world. So there's another story that I like. It's a Mayan story. Today's Cinco de Mayo, so celebration of the independence and freedom of Mexican people, and important thing. And so some of those people are Mayan. And in the Mayan story of the origin, they have more than one god working on making the world. It's so interesting why have just one doing it, so they have several, one is called Heart of Heaven, another is called, anyway, they have great names. And they're working on the world, and they've made the mountains and the rivers and the trees, and everything is beautiful. And then they've made the animals and the birds, the fishes, everything. It's great. And they go, something's missing. And they try to figure out what's missing. And Heart of Heaven says there's two things missing, actually. One is a conscious awareness of the beauty and meaning of the gift of life. That's absent. And the second thing that's absent is gratitude for the creation of the world. So they decide, let's make some beings who will have conscious awareness of the gift of life and gratitude for creation and being alive. And so that turned out to be human beings. Well, it didn't really turn out right away, because the first time they made human beings, they made them out of mud. We've heard that story before. Anyway, they made them out of mud, and they were kind of pliable and a little bit cute. But then when the big rains come, you know, the big rains always come. They came this morning, I noticed that. The big rains came, those mud people melted. And so they couldn't stand up for meaning or beauty or life or gratitude. So they went at it again. Let's make some that are stiffer. So they made these beings out of sticks. They call them the stick beings. And they were kind of upright and kind of decisive, and they were inventive. They invented all kinds of technologies that disturbed all of the animals. And the animals got upset by the stick people making all kinds of technologies and also being hard-headed and hard-hearted, because they were stick people, and they started complaining. And so they sent a really heavy rain, and that wiped out the stick people. And then they went for the third time. You know how it is in stories, you have to do it the third time. And the third time they tried to make people out of corn, the sacred material. And when made the people out of the corn, the people were amazing. Not only were they able to be grateful, but they were able to understand creation, and they had powers similar to the gods. They could see many ways down into the future, and they could see into the depth of things. They had tremendous vision. And so then the gods got a little bit upset, like they're almost like us. They're going to take over. And so they said, we want to take the giftedness away from them. And some of the gods wanted to do that, but Heart of Heaven said, you can't take away completely something you've given. And so let's just have them forget that they have inside the depth of vision similar to the gods, but then let's have them remember it in certain ways. And that is to say, they had certain stories that the humans would have, which if they paid attention to the stories, it would awaken the deep vision, and they would see the world the way the gods see it. So that's the answer. That's why I said especially the humans. So the humans are the only ones who can see the world the way the divine sees it, but that means we have to be very awake. We have to wake up, I call it the eyes of the soul, not the eyes of the infant, but the eyes of the soul. And then that detail about gratitude is very important. Turns out that gratitude is an emotion you can only feel when you feel everything together. When someone says it has no gratitude, it means they are not connected to parts of themselves. To be grateful is to feel all the parts of oneself. And so that's an important human emotion. I wanted to read a couple poems because I like to read poems, but I also wanted to make a distinction just because I think it's interesting. That's like an earth healing story. And it begins by gathering knowledge from darkness, and it gathers people through suffering and through knowledge that comes from the dark. And I call it a soul story. And so there's an old distinction, maybe everybody already know this, but there's a distinction between spirit and soul. Does everybody know that? No? Okay. Because we use them interchangeably in songs and so on. Spirit is connected to air and fire, and it ascends. The spirit will lift you up. And it lifts you up. Spirit, we just say spirit, like singular. There's one spirit. And everybody's trying to get to that one spirit. And some call it God, and some call it the Almighty, and some call it the original source, and you can call it whatever you want. Apparently, that's the old idea. God has so many names, you can't even name them. But that's the move towards the oneness. Soul is connected to water and earth, and it descends. It descends. And so soul is what takes us deep. The song from this morning. What is that beautiful song you're singing? Yeah. And it takes us deeper to that deeper love that's underneath, you know, the kind of passing love, the greater, deeper side. So soul is what takes us deep. And this story is a soul story. Healing requires depth. And soul is, whereas spirit is singular, soul is diverse and multiple. If there's one thing missing in this world, it's soul. Because when soul is missing, people get polarized. And not just disagreement, they polarize. And they think the other side is hateful. and evil. That means loss of soul. When there's soul, we know we're all suffering. When there's soul, we know we're all in this together. And when there's soul, we can bring everybody together, and that's the real unity of communitas, based on a depth of soul. And when you have that, the spirit automatically comes down. That's how I think about it. So, just a poem to have a poem. I have a lot of poems. Okay, this one. This is about like the first people. This is a translation of a Native American elder. It's called Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and the bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. You must ask its permission to know it and be known by it. Listen, the forest breathes. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again by saying, here. Listen deeper. No two trees are the same to the raven. No two branches are the same to the wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. But then stand still. The forest knows where you are, and you must let it find you. So it's just talking about the connection between the human and nature. You know, people think they're separate from nature, but human nature is connected to great nature. And sometimes we need to just stand still and be somewhere and let the world find us. So that's the little poem. Are we singing again or stopping? I don't know what we're doing. Okay, so since we called the ancestors in, we should tell them that we appreciate their presence, but we're going to move on to some other songs. I'm joking, but, you know, you got to let them know what you're doing, or you get the ancestors upset, and then you go back to having little dreams. And I know it was tricky, but it'll come back. Pura samne, pura samne, pura samne wo, pura samne wo, pura mamne, pura mamne. Pura mamni wo, pura mamni wo, pura samne, pura samne, pura samni wo, pura samni wo. Pura mamine, pura mamine, pura mamine wo, pura mamine wo. Thank you, thank you.
Michael,
Yeah.
before
Oh,
you leave, we want to extend that blessing to you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for just awakening the memory of our wholeness and our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
So let us extend this blessing.
It's just like the village, and
That's right.
put someone in the middle.
Yes.
I'm quite willing.
We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the divinity in you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. I'll grab this.
Okay. Wowza. So now is the time in our service where we prepare for our tithes and our offerings. And as we have our band members coming back, oh my gosh, everybody's here. Yay. So as we prepare, let us just remember that the stories, the memories, the awareness of our interconnectedness, how we as a community are really raising the vibration and expanding our dream. And we do this here at Unity of the Blue Ridge, and that vibration just echoes out into the world, and life is continuously transformed by all that we bring and all that we give and all that we are. So together, let us affirm: divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is.
In the land of I am more than I have, than I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. In the land of... Do not try this at home. I am a professional. In the land of I am more than I have, than I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. In the land of I am more than I have, than I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. In the land of I am more than I have, than I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. And the songs of all my great-grandmothers, the dreams of all my great-grandfathers, the way we rise beyond the pain, all live in me. In the land of I am more than I... Put your hands together. All that I am. In the land of I am more than I have, than I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. In the land of I am more than I will be. I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. I am more than I have, than I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. And the smiles of all the unborn children, and the dreams of a better day that comes, and the dance of heaven with earth, all live, all live, all live in me. In a land of I am. Sing it loud. In the land of I am more than I will be. I am more than I will be. I am all that I am. Been robbed and disgraced, abused and displaced. I've been robbed and disgraced, been abused and displaced, and the lies can be seen throughout the land, and the grace when you fall from the land, the more than enough in the land, 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 always at home here in the land of I am more than I. Sing it loud.
in the land of I am, that land of deep dreams. More than I have been, I am. More than I will be, I am. I'd like to invite our ushers to come forward along with our prayer chaplain, Carol, and our sacred service volunteer program coordinator, Madeline. And Madeline will be out at a welcome center if you want to know any of the ways you might get involved in this community. Carol and other prayer chaplains will be back in our prayer chapel if you'd like someone to pray with you. You can also put a prayer in our prayer box, which sits in the back of the room, and we will hold those in strict confidence and in great prayer for this week. So let's together bless this offering.
In gratitude, we bless the abundance that flows through our lives and through our Unity Center, the gift of prayer and our sacred connection, our capacity to serve and to make a difference with our lives. And together we affirm the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God enables us, the presence of God abides with us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And wherever Michael is, we'll be at the table outside selling some of his books and CDs and giving you a chance to talk personally to him. Thank you again, Michael, for your amazing stories. If you missed the first service, you missed a totally different story. Sorry about that. But it was all wonderful, so you got a good one too. So believing that we do have a way to serve in this world, let's stand and remember that the peace we want is in us, and we're going to send ourselves out in that peace.
Let